do 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 ah ah do do ah ah do do ah 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 ah. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Fun Bunker Film School, a podcast where we check off watch list items from people's watch lists and their checklists and those kinds of things. And today we've got a student and a guest student, a transfer student, as you will. So, yes, today we've got Nathan.
Hello.
Say hello, Nathan.
That's
Hello,
me.
hello. And our transfer student over from Anime Land, we've got Ben.
Konnichiwa.
And as you saw in the title, we're going to be talking about a movie called Bone Tomahawk. Now, you might be wondering, what is Bone Tomahawk? That's because it is a very small horror Western movie from 2015 that was made on a small budget and also did not make a lot of money. It's not a very well-seen film, but it's one that I still wanted to highlight. This was one that I remember, Nathan, it was on your radar for a while, and we've been talking about watching it forever. So what did you kind of like, how did you come to learn about it? And then what did you think of watching Bone Tomahawk?
I don't remember how I heard about it. I've always liked Westerns. I went through like a John Wayne kick in high school and watched a whole bunch of John Wayne movies, and then Tombstone and like all those, my dad was a big Western fan too. I think I remember one year we got him Lonesome Dove, and it was like a 4 VHS like tape series because anyway, so I think it must have just popped up, and then seeing the description of a horror Western, it's like that's kind of unique. Like, how do those two genres blend together? So, and I think I don't know if I mentioned something to you and you knew about it. Like, it's great. It's super graphic. It's like, oh yeah, bring it on. I love violence. And then and like the cast too, like Kurt Russell. I think it's one of the things I said when we watched it. I was like, Kurt Russell just feels like he was born to play a cowboy. So, Chris and I watched it, Saturday or Friday night, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And just a few days ago. I loved it. I thought it was great. There's definitely some scenes in there that like stick with you for a while. But it was like, it was an interesting blend. I feel like there's some kind of classical like Western elements. You've got the damsel in distress kind of, and like a ragtag unlikely crew against all odds kind of across the desert, and but then there's some like very kind of eerie, almost otherworldly elements to the villains that you encounter, that you're like, I'm like, at one point I remember thinking, I was like, is this how like rooted in reality is this? Like, are these villains like, is this gonna be a situation where it's like, okay, these are just crazy cannibals, or is it, I don't know, are they gonna be not quite
you're not sure if it's
type,
a supernatural thing or if it's totally.
Yep. So those kind of elements start peeking in that kind of like twist it from that traditional Western type feel. But I without getting too much into it, I really enjoyed it. So
yeah, sure. And then Ben, I remember I had given you a list of some of the upcoming movies we were doing and kind of a brief like genre description of some of those movies. And you pretty quickly jumped to this one. Was there something about the sound, or was it the title, or something about the combo of genres that kind of drew you to be interested in trying this one out?
Ooh, I would say all of the above. I love Kurt Russell. I want to watch. He's one of those guys I would love him as an actor, but then I'm like, what all movies have I even seen him in? So I was like, I just need to see more Kurt Russell movies because I just really enjoy him. And the Western horror thing was interesting to me as well because I have a comparison of another movie um, that is Western this style but not horror. Well, 310 to Yuma. It's
Yeah.
like some very similar scenes, some very similar ideas, but I would not at all classify 310 to Yuma as horror Western. It's just a violent Western. And this one fit the description well. Like I was on edge the entire time. Like there weren't moments of relief there. Well, kind of, but overall, you're just kind of the intensity is high the whole way through, which is kind of wild.
Yeah,
You
for
know, for a
sure.
Western, wild,
For a
wild
Western.
Western.
A wild, wild western. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not even sure really when I first saw this or how I came across it, other than horror films have always been like for a long time, they're a big curiosity for me. Like you hear, the more you're around film, the more you hear about them because there's so much interesting work and experimentation being done in horror. And they've got very devout followings. In that genre. Like people who are horror fans will watch just about anything in that genre. Like there's not as much snobbery tied to horror films. And I like westerns a lot, and so a more gritty or violent western is definitely in my wheelhouse.
Hmm.
The 310 to Yuma comparison is, I think, apt because it's a more violent western. Um, yeah, and it's one that's made in a more modern era. That one's like 2007, I believe,
Hmm.
by James Mangold, the guy who did like Logan,
Oh,
and like the newer Indiana Jones movie that people didn't like and stuff. Like he's a good director.
yeah. Huh.
But this movie was actually the feature, like, or the directorial debut of this guy S. Craig Zoller. Um, and he was kind of tracked around for a little bit. Like he's only made a few movies in the last 10 years or so, and they have not been received as well as this one has. But it's still very impressive for a directorial debut. Like we've talked about on this podcast, we talked about 12 Angry Men being like the directorial debut of
Hmm.
Sidney Lumet, and like how full and accomplished and like polished that movie felt, for being a directorial debut. And I feel like this has a little bit of that polish. Like it doesn't feel like it's somebody's like first crack at something. Um, I think it's well done and it's well written. Like from the dialogue between a lot of the characters, especially the four main guys,
Hmm.
as they are out on the trail trying to go find Patrick Wilson's wife.
Hmm.
Their dialogue and their interactions are all really well written, as well as just like that tension that we were talking about earlier, where you don't know, you don't really fully have a sense of how bad it's going to get, and that's always kind of lurking in the back of your mind as events transpire. So
Hmm.
um, if you haven't seen this movie, to cover it a little bit, it's a sort of, I think they classify it as like a rescue western. So there's a small town. um, Kurt Russell plays the sheriff of the town. um, Patrick Wilson is like a foreman who has this injury. His wife is also one of the town doctors. And she is kidnapped in the middle of the night by what they believe to be Native Americans. And then they are told by a, Native American professor in the area that it's actually these troglodytes, the cannibals. He does not consider them to be like
Hmm.
proper like Native Americans with like a rich culture or anything.
Yeah.
They are like monsters, is kind of the way he puts it, and tells them that he will not go with them to go look for them because he does not want to be killed. He does not want to die. Um, And
Mm.
so then the movie is them going and searching for the kidnapped wife, and the kind of the crew that assembles is Kurt Russell, the sheriff. You've got Patrick Wilson, the foreman, the husband that's longing to go with them, and then my two favorite characters, the Richard Jenkins, the old guy. His name I'm pulling up. Chicory. I love
Chicory. Yeah.
Chicory,
Yeah.
who is like the deputy sheriff, and he's kind of, I don't think he's like dumb, but he's like a little bit like, I don't know, a little bit more like slower and more grounded, and just kind of very curious about the world. Talks a lot. And then Matthew Fox, who plays a guy named John Bruder, who seems to be, do they say he's like a mercenary, or if they say, I'm trying to remember if they even say like what his occupation is, but he has
I
a,
don't think they do. That's I kind of read it as like a yeah, kind of a
he,
mercenary. Like
yeah, he's a guy with a history of violence, and I think they do allude to both him and Kurt Russell being involved in like the Civil War, like they're
oh
both
okay
like soldiers as well.
Yeah.
Um, so these four go out on a 5 day trek in 3 days to try and rescue this woman. Um, and yeah, what did you kind of think about this kind of like the opening in the middle section? I guess it also opens with two bandits kind of getting caught in with, you very briefly get a glimpse of the violence that is to come, as these two bandits end up walking upon the troglodytes, like, what do you call that, like burial
that's
ground,
very
and
yeah.
then one of them gets shot with an arrow like from far away. Yeah, it's just like super crazy violent off the rip.
Well,
What did you
like
guys
the
think
very
about kind
first
of that?
scene, it's
Yes.
like is like cutting through some guy's neck like very gruesomely. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, right off the bat, those two bandits, you're like, okay, these guys are evil people, you know. And then I don't know, it was interesting to me to like before you even know who the troglodytes are, but like they stumble through the burial ground and they're kind of getting freaked out and they hear noises and pulling their guns out and there's some comment from one of the bandits about like we're civilized people, these they're presuming Native Americans like are savages, like they're dumb, like we're
Yeah.
and it was interesting like kind of like to hear that coming from a guy who's just like brutally murdered innocent people to steal stuff from them, like as if he's
Yeah.
somehow morally better than the Native Americans because he's white, whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is a great like
but
Western trope
yeah,
of, like it's like the world is somewhat civilized, but there's also ways to skirt around that civilization. And there's
yeah,
also so much death and like people skirting around the rules to try and gain money and power.
yeah. I think so. I think from that point, and then how quickly it like, he gets shot through the neck, quick, like it's out of kind of out of nowhere, and then there's a scene later on with the stable boy uh, in town who gets killed, like, and it's super quick. And I think for me, those two kind of set up the tension that like something could happen at any point. Like they were both deaths that kind of came a little bit out of nowhere. Like not you to some extent you're expecting it, but they happen so quickly uh, that the kind of the whole rest of the movie, I'm waiting for that to happen again. To as the band is moving across, traveling. In the back of my mind, it's like something could happen at any point. Because they come out of nowhere and it's like bam,
Yeah.
over. I don't
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how the way it, it sets it up. Then when the four are out in their travels, like you said, Felbin, literally every second you're just waiting for that to happen again.
know.
And then also because you know now what this noise, you're starting to get the idea what this noise means. That very scary noise. That's where maybe you're thinking of like the supernatural, like what are
Yeah,
we really fighting here? But it was kind of neat that they incorporated that there was a sort of device that kind of enhanced that sound, which I really appreciated. That it wasn't just they were making weird, obnoxious. Well,
yeah,
they were, and so you heard that noise, and you're like, oh no, what's gonna happen?
yeah,
Just like it's all of
Yeah,
us. There's just no time to rest in the movie, nor for the characters.
right. It immediately puts you on edge, including scenes like there's definitely scenes that take place at night, but it's not all of the horror moments are moments that like take place in the dark. A
Mm-hmm.
couple of them definitely do, but um, this movie is a lot of it's in the daylight on the dusty west, and it's more just being afraid of something that might be in bushes or over a hill, and yeah, I appreciated that about it too. Like it feels like it meshes the horror elements with the western elements really well. Like it doesn't feel like there is one half of the movie that is completely western and one half of the movie that is like completely horror. I don't know, would you agree with that?
yeah. I think I would. I think it's all blended pretty well, and I think yeah, like you said, from the use of noise of that sound of their call, like kind of I don't know, it's reminiscent of some horror tropes. I think of hearing a noise that you associate with something bad happening, and so it's like okay, is it because they're close? Are they being watched? Like, is it just because they are they making that noise unrelated to the crew and they just happen to hear it, or are they making it because they see the crew and they're like talking to each other? Is it because they're what does it mean? I don't know. It just it gives you, like you said, kind of puts you on edge. And I don't know where I was going with that, but I think in general, it just kind of it's some of those horror elements are just kind of weaved throughout all of it.
Yeah, it's people, but you also are not sure. Like at certain points, you kind of are wondering, like, is it an animal? Like, is it something completely different? Is it like wolves or something?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Um, but it's also just that it's this that weird, like high pitched kind of like whistly sound, and you're like it's just like inhuman enough to like be like unsettling, and like it's not just like something, I don't know, normal or whatever.
yeah,
um yeah, I mean, and we can just kind of keep going and talking through like the we can talk through a lot of the middle of the movie too, but because I think there's a lot of great moments when they're on the trail, when they're setting traps at night, when they come across the Mexican bandits, um, yeah, or would be bandits rather. There's a lot of great moments along the way, but I do think that like the kind of the last act of this film is where it really like kicks into high gear,
hmm
um, and you get the reveal. They make it to the uh I guess like the back to that burial ground, and below their cave. We were told that they were like cave dwellers, um, and Patrick Wilson's character is not with them because he has had like a setback with his injury due to a fight with Matthew Fox's character. Um, and then you get that you get to see just how violent these guys are, and also that they have like a it's like a whistle, it looks like a whistle that's like been made out of bone, that's like in their throats somehow,
Yeah.
and that's how they're making these sounds that are so crazy, and they're communicating with them somehow, but it's never really like explored that much more, which I think is cool because it adds to the mystery of them or whatever. um
and I think doesn't the professor at the start say something about how they don't have he's like
I
they
don't
don't
have
even have
language.
language, they don't write, like they don't talk, they don't write, they don't like they're not human. He's getting at basically like
Hmm.
Yeah, right. In a world where um people probably already view the Native American people as like less than and as
Hmm.
uncivilized. Like this is coming from a Native American, and he's saying, no, these guys
Yeah.
really are not, like these guys are like monsters. They are
yeah,
cannibals. Like um, they do unspeakable things or whatever. Yeah. So you get to that last act, and you get into, so Matthew Fox's character kind of goes out in a blaze of glory, ends up dying, but then you have Kurt Russell, the sheriff, and Chicory get kidnapped themselves and brought into the cave where they find the wife and then one of the other sheriffs from the town that was also kidnapped there. Um, and you get that scene where they kill the other sheriff in front of everybody else in what's maybe the most one of the most memorable like horror deaths I feel like I'd seen in films. Like I've seen a lot of you see a lot of gnarly stuff in horror movies and in slashers and that kind of thing, but I've never seen somebody quite scalped and then split in half the way that he is scalped and split in half.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you guys' reactions during that moment?
It's just like, yeah, you know something's coming, and like they make contact and talk, and the wife seems like physically unharmed. You could tell she's like obviously mentally harmed. Uh, and then the deputy who's in, I think it's she's like, he's here. Is he alive? Yeah, or whatever. Like he's here. He's in rough shape. Whatever. Um, and then as they pull him out, it's like they mention the bandit that also got kidnapped with them. They're like, oh, they already killed him and ate him. So it's like, you know, that
You know what the
that's an
stakes
only
are.
matter of time. Yeah, like if they're working through everybody. So I know. I just every part of it, I was like, oh no, 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 no. Like they start scalping him, which is brutal, and
Yeah.
then like they stick his own scalp in his mouth,
Oh
and
yeah.
then like start to hammer, I think, a bone through his mouth with it. And then as soon as they like flip him upside down, and then you're like, no, I don't want to see what's coming. Don't do it. Like, and then like spread his legs apart and just like hack all the way down.
Just
It's just like,
yeah.
yeah, it's brutal. And then I don't know if it's that same scene or like a cut to the next scene where one of the guys is just like walking with his arm or a leg in his hand, like chewing on it, like a
Yeah.
Yeah.
big old turkey leg at a
Like a turkey
Renaissance
like at Disney
fair.
World.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
Except it's this guy's leg. Um, and you get that scene too, like because I think Kurt Russell is telling him, uh, it was like, we got a whole posse coming. There's
Mm.
federal guys coming from, whatever big city. Like you're gonna be avenged. They're gonna kill all these people. And then later, Chicory's like, oh, is that really happening? And
Yeah.
he's like, no. He's like, well, why did you lie to him? He's like, well, if that was gonna be done to me, that's what I'd want to hear. And that kind of comes into play a little bit later too. But
Hmm.
Yep.
but yeah, that having heard like that this movie is pretty graphic, and even knowing that, like that seems still pretty intense to view.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, so an interesting story, not a lengthy one. I was on Facebook far before I saw this movie, and I saw one of these like, oh, what's the um, most scarring scene anybody's seen in a movie? And I'm like, ooh, I want to see the comments here. And a lot of people put Tomahawk. And so I had, in a sense, it ruined for me that something crazy was going to happen in this movie. However, what that did was for the whole movie, I was like, "Oh no, it's probably this next scene." For the whole for the whole entire movie, I was just thinking something
Waiting for it.
awful was going to happen, and sure enough, it still did. It like any of those types of scenes that I think of. The one for me is Saving Private Ryan. That's my number one for
Ooh.
like just what makes those scenes horrible is when it feels like personal, like when there's dialogue or when there's anything other than just so like as he's pleading to the sheriff and the sheriff's talking to him and everything's happening in the background, that just made that scene so much worse. And
Yeah.
and just it was all kinds of bad.
I think like the helplessness of it too, like they strip him naked and you can tell he's been like
Yeah.
starved and beaten, like he's totally helpless. And they try and break out, and then there's to help him, and they obviously it's useless. So that for me is another piece that like makes it so much worse. It's like this guy
Yeah,
is just totally
you
help
don't get a
knows what's coming.
sense.
He knows what's coming too because he witnessed this happen to the other guy
Yes.
presumably. So like he's helpless. He knows what's about to happen to him, and nobody can do anything about it. And that's yeah, that's you almost like get into the like what would this character be feeling or thinking right now? And it's like yeah, it's kind of
Oh.
Mm.
horrific.
Yeah, the sense of dread you get from it's like help is not coming. Like we haven't
Yeah,
seen that Patrick Wilson is, has gotten that back up yet. Matthew Fox is dead. The other two guys are, and yeah, it's like they try and break out, but then the one, like as like Kurt Russell's trying to break out, they like smash his fingers with, like one of their
yeah,
weapons or whatever. So he's like he can't do any, like nobody can do anything, and you're just like you're just going to have to sit here and watch this. And the way it's filmed too, just in that kind of like wider shot, steady, and it's just you see it happen, and you're just like, oh, oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
so brutal. Like, so it's funny. Like, I just done the last movie we did on this podcast was The Searchers, John Ford, and that was at the time a more, I don't want to say transgressive film, but it was a movie where John Ford played a less savory guy, and it's a western. And in that movie, like there are Native Americans that have like scalped people, and I noted when watching it, it's a movie that was made in the 50s. Um, when they show like the scalps that they have collected, it kind of just looks like somebody like took the ponytail like wig off of like a few dolls,
mhm,
and
Mm.
just like they just have the hair pretty much. And I was thinking about how that's in such stark contrast to something like this, where are seeing a prosthetic skull and it's being peeled back, and then as he said,
Mhm.
like shoved in its mouth. It's like so much more horrific and graphic.
Yeah.
yeah,
And yeah, like a testament to like this movie was made on such a low budget, but even with a low budget, they're still able to get that kind of like effects work and have something like that brutal and gross looking. Is pretty impressive.
and I think like the whole movie is there's violence all throughout, but I think going into it, I was not knowing much about it. I was kind of expecting there to be, I guess, a lot more kind of constant
Sure.
violence, and there's not. And so, but I think that gives that scene even much that more weight. Like, because if there's been brutal stuff happening throughout, then you kind of even within the span of a movie kind of start to grow a little desensitized to it. Um,
Yeah. If
but
it's a
there's really,
relentless onslaught of
yeah,
killings, it
yeah,
loses its effect. And there, like you said, there's violence, there's gunshots, there's the guys that get killed at the beginning. But by that point in the movie, it's almost like lulled you into a false sense of security,
yeah,
like because nothing has really happened. It's just been a hard like trail
Mhm.
right.
for the guys.
Like Ben said, like you're waiting the whole time. You're waiting for something to happen, but and it doesn't for a while, and so yeah, you do kind of get lulled into that sense of security. It's like okay, I guess and then that's the next thing. Um, yeah, you I guess you get it kind of cuts right at the end, but when you see the Bone Tomahawk, the uh,
The titular
the
Bone
titular
Tomahawk.
Bone Tomahawk that ends up killing Matthew Fox's character, like I think right that might well yeah that might be the first time you see it anyway. He gets that like right to the face, but it kind of cuts right when it happens, and so you don't really see it. And then I think in passing, I don't remember his name, but the husband's character kind of crawls by and sees him laying there. Um, but but yeah, anyway, all that to say, it gives it that much more weight when that scene actually happens, and uh, yeah. And then the other part of it too for me was like in the same sense that the deputy there knows what's coming to him. Like now, everybody else trapped just witnessed that is presuming like, okay, that's what's awaiting me eventually. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes
Yeah.
your captivity that much more horrific too. But
Yeah, your stomach begins to crawl a little bit more. Yeah. Um, yeah. So that's one of those things that sticks with you, I think, is some like that really graphic scene. Along with the other one that sticks with me is when they escape. Just go and jump into the end of the movie. When they escape and they pass by, like the wife has mentioned, they're asking him like about how many are there, um, and they're asking details that she's managed to gather to try and figure out their odds of survival and like what they need to do. They have some tincture of opium that they can maybe poison a few of them with, like trying to figure out what to do. And then she mentions that there are two females, but they are, I think I'm trying to remember the phrase she uses, like they're blinded and crippled, I
they're
think is just
blind
the
and
way she
crippled,
puts
I
it.
think. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you I don't know, like she says that, and even when she says that, it doesn't paint the picture for me as when they pass them in, as
Mm-hmm.
they're leaving the cave, and you see these two women that are just like lying on their backs, and they have no arms, no legs, and like spikes in their eyes, and they're very clearly like pregnant. It's like the most
Mm.
horrific, like they're just
Yeah.
kind of like waddling there, like it's like an awful vision. It's just like one last reminder that they are like they're they're leaving hell. Like at one point they say like we're in hell, like they are
Mm-hmm.
leaving like the absolute like worst place on earth. um and so I think of that when I think of this movie. I remember those two like uh elements, I guess. But then
Yeah.
I think I do really like, and we talked about at the beginning, is just like how good some of the actors are. These are all like great character actors, and they're playing like really fun characters. Like as you said, Kurt Russell as like a gruff like Western guy is one of the best to ever do it, in my opinion. Um, it's like it's him and it's Jeff Bridges for me are like
Yeah.
the two. Like I'll if they are in a Western, I want to see it. I want to see them just like talking gravelly voices
Yep.
about what life is really like, and watch them point cool looking revolvers at people.
Yep.
He is so good in it. Like it's a really fun role for him. He hasn't done a ton of other like westerns. He's played characters like this, but like The Hateful Eight is another direct western, a movie that
Mm-hmm.
also keeps coming up on this podcast. Um, he's a little gruffer in a movie I really like, another Tarantino one, Death Proof, where he plays a
Mm.
stuntman
Yeah.
that kills people in like a death proof car. Um, by putting people like in the passenger seat and then purposely like rolling it and crashing it. So he's a little gruffer in that. He's also in like Tombstone and like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and stuff. Like he's, I think he might be only in a voice role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I can't quite remember, but he's done things like this in the past, and it's really cool. Ben, you had said you knew you liked Kurt Russell, but you couldn't really think of many movies you had seen him in. Like, do you remember what kind of movies you had seen him in, or did you end up watching any more of his movies?
Yeah, it's funny. So my favorite Kurt Russell movie is Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
I watched that at the Brandenburg house, as I do many things for the first time as a kid. Whatever movies we weren't allowed to watch, we watched at that house. Um,
awesome.
and love that one. There's a couple other movies he made during like at that age that I watched. I can't remember the names of it. Um, I really like him in Hateful Eight. I really like that role. I really like a very different role, but I really like him in Miracle as the coach.
Yes,
Um, he's he's really good in that. But I couldn't really think of other movies, even though I know I've seen him in more movies than that. There's no way. So if I like Google it, I'm sure I could find others. The characters I was more fascinated by, because he played the role I would expect. I was not
sure.
surprised by the role he was, and I loved it. But what I was pleasantly surprised with were Chicory and Matthew Fox's role. I
Yeah.
thought, um, just real quick, Chicory, he honestly, I think he completed the movie because without him, it would have just been negativity the whole time and
Yes.
dreary. And he made me laugh a lot in a movie where you're just like scared the whole time. So it's a little relief he provided. And then Matthew Fox's character, I was really surprised because the way they introduced him, he's all dressed up, he's talking tough. I was like, this guy's gonna die like 10 minutes into this trip. We're gonna find out he's a big scaredy cat. He's all talk. He doesn't want his clothes dirty. But he was the real dude. He was the real dude deal.
Yeah. Yeah. um yeah, he's an interesting character. Like Matthew Fox, like a guy who is most well known for being Jack on Lost, like the lead on Lost.
Yeah.
Um and he's good in that role. Jack is not everybody's favorite character on Lost. As the kind of like moral center, like do-gooder. But I think he like after watching like this, I think like when and it makes me think of like moments where Jack was less savory, like when he was, he did the hard thing. That's kind of what this character does more in the movie. Like he's the
Hmm.
guy that does the hard thing. And it reminds me of like another kind of Western trope, I guess, of like there's got to be a name for it, but the second guy on the team that also thinks he's like the lead on the team, like the guy that's also got a bunch of
Hmm.
experience and action and is ready to kill at a moment's notice. Um, like like in if you're thinking of like True Grit, it's like Matt Damon's character, like
Hmm.
who is like the Texas Ranger and thinks that he's
Mhm.
better than Jeff Bridges' character. That's kind of like how I see Matthew Fox in this role, and like as you said, like usually that character is either like dumb or is like very clearly lesser than like the
Yeah.
lead, and no, he's like a killing machine. Like he's awesome in the movie.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Nathan, I knew you were
Well,
a Lost guy,
yeah.
so you had some experience with Matthew Fox. What did you think? With like, did you know he was in this before we started watching?
No, I did not. I was surprised, and yeah, because he kind of again, that's Lost is kind of the only thing I can really think of him in, and so he kind of have that character associated with that face, and
Yeah.
so it kind of took me a little bit to kind of get that out of my head and like see him as the different character.
Same.
Um, but yeah, I'm kind of with you, Ben. He walks in, he's like kind of Mr. Fancy Pants in his suit and talking tough, and then uh, yeah, like he ends up being kind of the like lovable kind of asshole of the group. Like he does some pretty uh, mean stuff, whatever. And like the bells, like right away when he sets the bells up for the trap, it's like, okay, I think this guy knows like what he's doing. And
Yeah.
then there's a scene where something rings the bells, and then like half a second he's shot, and you can hear like a wolf whimpering or something. Um, and then like he makes some comment. Well, that part where you mentioned uh, the foreman, uh, his injury, he gets into a fight and makes his injury worse. He says something about like I can't remember. He makes some pass at his wife, who they're going to rescue,
Mm-hmm.
who's been, they don't even know if she's alive or not. Um, which kind of trying to be lighthearted, I think. But he takes it personally and gets into a fight, breaks his leg, and so. But then I think the next time they see each other, he sees him dead. There at the foot of the cave. So it's like, on the one hand, this guy was, making a pass at my wife, who we're going to rescue. And then, he presumably gave his life for her, in this moment for us.
Hmm.
So yeah, so you see, like, he's kind of lovable the whole time, but then at the end, you really see him kind of redeem any misgivings with who he was, like his motivation, like you know, I guess you could argue whether he died or went to save her, or there's also some talk of he just kind of likes to kill Native Americans. So, like,
Yes.
was that
Yeah.
his motivation, maybe just to go and kill as many as he could? Or did he, at the beginning, he says he feels somewhat responsible because he went and got her, to bring her to the jail, where she ends up getting kidnapped. So he's like, well, I got to go because I'm the one that went and brought her here and made this happen, essentially.
Right.
Um, but yeah, but then at the end, he mentions he's however many Native Americans he's killed, and I'll take out as many more as I can, while you guys go on. But um, yeah, he was. I think his character's kind of evolution was really interesting to watch as well.
Yeah. That very much is an element of the Searchers as well, because John Ford's character in that movie, you get the sense over the film that he really just hates the Comanche tribe more than he wants to rescue the little girl. Like he
Yeah,
just is out for
Mm,
violence and vengeance because of wrongs that had been done to him, which um, Matthew Fox's character also alludes to.
that's
His
true.
mom and his sisters
Yeah,
were like kidnapped and killed or something when he was 10 years old.
yeah,
yep.
That he's like, he says something at the end because Chicory had asked him like how many he had taken out and he
yeah,
didn't answer before, and then when he's dying he's like, the answer was 116, and you're like,
yeah,
dude, yikes. But then yeah, he's kind of redeeming himself at the same time and going out in a blaze of glory trying to take out as many as he can, which is awesome. But then Chicory though, like, yeah, like if you're looking at the four main guys, it's like you have Kurt Russell, like the brave noble guy. You have Patrick Wilson's character who is the husband, and he's loving and passionate and like is like loyal to a fault. You have Matthew Fox's character full of like malice and uh, skill and tact or whatever you want to call it. And then you have Chicory, who is like somehow like full of like love and hope. Like it's like,
Mm,
and humor, like the humor that comes out of him is so good. And he is like primarily, maybe he's not primarily, but he is a comedic actor. Like I think of a certain like our generation, he's most well known for being in Step Brothers, as like
yeah.
the stepdad, um, and how funny his character is in that movie. Like it's hard for me to watch Bone Tomahawk and not think about the stepdad, uh, like like spanking John C. Riley, like just all this like goofy stuff. Like some of the dialogue in that movie, um,
Right.
is so funny, and he is good in this movie. But his character like also does provide like all of that levity and like that comedic that comic relief that if done wrong like could really like hurt the movie. Like comic
Yeah.
relief in a movie can sometimes like feel like it's maybe letting too much air out of the balloon.
Hmm.
Whereas in this, it's just like he's just a funny guy and is like a fun character that you're like hanging on to every word he says because it's gonna be something weird and podunk and old timey. He's annoying
Yeah.
somebody, it seems, at all times. And
Yep.
then you get that great one of the great scenes at the end where they're in the jail and he's talking about the flea circus that had passed through town and wondering whether, he said that his wife told him that the flea circus wasn't real, um, and that he believed that it was. And the wife ends up, lying and saying that the fleas were real and everything, and like the sense of joy he gets in that. And it comes back to that moment, Nathan, you had talked about earlier, where Kurt Russell had been talking to Nick, the sheriff that was dying, and
yeah,
telling him that the cavalry was coming and that there was, legions of guys coming down to take them all out and rescue them. Uh, and it feels like in a way like you're not quite sure if he's looking for that kindness to be done to him. Like he thinks the end is coming and he wants something nice to be said to him, and
right.
and
And
or
some
whether
small way here, like at the end, like to be told that, yeah, the flea circus, those were real fleas. You were right,
yeah,
like
this thing that brought you joy was
it's a,
actually
it's
real
a,
and wasn't a
yeah,
fantasy.
right. yeah, exactly. The thing that I loved and was awesome was not fake. Like, yeah, it
Yeah,
was really a good. I
it's
like
like
that part a lot.
yeah, this like oddly like kind of like beautiful or poetic little scene that's like
Yeah,
in the midst of like the worst part of the movie for the characters.
and like a very kind of goofy premise, like a flea circus, and
Right.
like
Hmm.
that this grown man would actually believe that they were real fleas that were trained. Like it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
kind of
That they
goofy
weren't just
thing,
dead and glued.
right? But yeah, like you said, it's kind of a very poetic, beautiful moment. Um, yeah,
Yeah. And then Patrick Wilson, he's one I don't have as much of a relationship with. He's big in like the Conjuring movies are really popular. Speaking of other horror movies, um, I mostly knew him because he played Night Owl in Watchmen. Like Watchmen being my favorite like graphic novel of all time. So I've seen the movie a good handful of times as well. And I think he's good in that, and he's been good in other things that I've seen, but. Um, in this movie, like I do like his, he's just kind of like the do-gooder, or like he's so passionate and in loving it's like to the fault that it's endearing. And then he's also the guy that kind of figures out, like he's the one that figures out the whistle, as he ends
Yeah.
up cutting out the whistle out of the dead troglodyte's throat and then puts it in his mouth, which is disgusting. But then figures that out and starts taking these guys out as he is completely like limping through the desert and like dragging himself.
Hmm.
Um, like, you don't even get the answer of like how he gets up that hill into the cave. Like, did he crawl up the hill, or I'm
yeah,
not, like you see at one point that like the troglodytes like cry out and then they like drop a rope, like there's some sort of symbol where they can then drop a rope to get into the cave, but he somehow gets into that cave and he
Hmm.
is killed the last remaining troglodytes that he needed to, and then they're able to escape. But yeah, did you guys have much of a relationship to Patrick Wilson, or did you seen him in anything else? I know he's in the Aquaman movies too.
I didn't recognize him from anything.
Okay.
Aquaman is where, and now um, Watchmen. No, I had forgotten about that. But yeah, those
Yeah,
are the only
yeah,
two movies I can think of.
yeah. um Yeah, so he's a good actor. It's just I don't like have a relationship with a lot of the franchises that he's like been a part of.
Hmm.
But yeah, I do like him in Watchmen. He's a good night owl. He's a good what's the character's name? Dan Dryberg. So, but yeah, that kind of covers a lot of Bone Tomahawk. Was there anything else that you guys wanted to call out in the movie?
There was one other line that I just maybe it's a little cheesy, but I liked it a lot. Uh, they're at the end at the escape. Kurt Russell ends up sacrificing himself. Um, he gets targeted. They find out the poison, endeavor they tried and end up
Mm.
that's not nearly as graphic, but pretty brutal too. Like cutting him open with the bone tomahawk
Ugh.
and then shoving that flask in there. And anyway, so like right as they're leaving, he's I'm gonna stay behind him. He's dying. Hand me the gun and I'll take out the rest of them. And Chicory kind of throughout the movie has been talking about his wife in different moments, who has died. I don't think you ever hear when or why or from what. Um,
Yeah, you see her
but
grave. He goes to her
yeah,
gravesite at like before they set
right
out. But
before
yeah,
they leave, yeah. So he talks about her, throughout the movie, and in a very, you can tell like obviously misses her, and still kind of fresh her death. Um, but I don't know exactly what it comes about. But Kurt Russell, something about his wife, or Chicory asks like, you know, he tells him to say hi to his wife or whatever. Anyway, Kurt Russell says, you know, say goodbye to my wife for me, and I'll say hello to yours. And it's
yeah,
like,
Hmm.
oh man, that's a good line. I don't know. It
It's
just
yeah.
really good.
again, maybe it's a little cheesy, but it kind of hit me. Right, I was like, oh, that was great.
But
A
it
nice
works. Like,
farewell from those two. Like,
Yeah.
they were buddies too. Like you could tell they had long-standing relationship too, and um, yeah, it worked. I thought.
Yeah, I don't think the movie has any bones about being like a big prestigious film or anything. So, but when you can have a moment of cheese, and if it works in the moment, that's good writing. Like even
Yeah,
if this is not like I don't think it would win like a screenplay award or anything. It's good writing
yeah,
because it still worked in the moment and it didn't take you out of that moment. Like, and as you said, like with the flea circus thing earlier, like in the wrong hands or with the wrong script, the wrong words, the wrong actor, that scene doesn't work. It would be like, what is he talking about? This is so stupid.
yeah.
But it doesn't feel that way at all.
Hmm. I agree. I There wasn't a single time in the movie that something happened that I was like, oh, like the it takes you out of the moment kind of feeling. I didn't
Yeah.
have. I was with them the whole time. I was crawling. I was crying. I was shivering. I was all those things. And the last thing I want to say about the movie that I thought was just what made it terrifying, but also really good, was it was very much good triumphing over real evil. Like
Yeah,
it wasn't, we talk about this in Three Dads Talking About Anime. It wasn't somebody who was misunderstood. It wasn't somebody that I got to hear about all their background and then I felt sorry for them. This was evil that needed to be taken down, defeated. And it happened in the end. It was a very gruesome road, but man, did it feel good when they were leaving and the enemy was destroyed.
that's a good
Yeah.
point. Like there was no like, oh, but they're just misunderstood. Yeah, like I said, misunderstood. Like when you get that glimpse of their quote unquote wives, like then you see, okay, these people don't even care about their own people.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Hmm.
there is no like family here. There is no like protecting your way of life or your culture. Like even
Right.
your own like children and wives are just you know meat to you. Like it's there's no like
Right.
yeah, this is pure evil. It needs to be destroyed.
Yeah. What you said, Ben, about like like learning their backstory or hearing that they're misunderstood, like it's a growing trend in storytelling that
Mm-hmm.
at times works and I think it
Yeah.
oftentimes does not. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's funny, like I was actually just listening to the Holy Post podcast, which is Phil Vischer, the guy from who made Veggie Tales. And he was talking about how he doesn't like the play and the film Wicked for expressly that reason, that he doesn't like that they took the Wicked Witch of the West and said like, oh, actually she just had a rough childhood. Actually
Right.
she's just like misunderstood, and Glinda is actually from a place of, the Good Witch is like from a place of privilege and opportunity, and is actually like in her own way like a villain of sorts.
Yeah.
Um, and I think of like we're all big Star Wars guys. Like
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of people had a lot to say about the Book of Boba Fett and its successes and failings. Um, and the thing that bothered me the most in that was the idea that the Rancors are actually just like beasts that just need to be tamed and talked to. Like
Yeah.
this thing that like you see like eat the pig people in Return of the Jedi, and like Luke has to defeat this like disgusting looking monster, but it's actually just a big teddy bear,
It's like
like
yeah,
it's
why
like
can't
just
a
a big
monster just be a
gorilla.
monster? Like
Yeah, what? Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's room for a moral gray area story if that's what
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah,
want to tell.
for sure.
But I think that watching good versus evil is also a lot of fun, and it's a theme in storytelling that is literally as old as storytelling.
Yeah.
Mm, preach.
So yeah. Okay, so another thing I like to do is kind of go over the streaming algorithm. Like, what are the movies? If you liked this movie,
Ooh.
what could you watch next?
Ooh.
Um, so I got a couple options here. Like the closest, I think, in in theme and setting and plot structure is actually another small movie from 1999 called Ravenous, which is a movie about like a 19th century like army fort that has to then in that also has like cannibalistic elements and is like a Western setting. And there's also the horror of cannibalism in it. Um, I don't think I would point you to one of this film's inspirations, which would be like Cannibal Holocaust, which is this movie that was like banned in a bunch of countries. And I remember a friend of mine in high school, a friend of mine in high school got really excited because he found a bootleg DVD at some store. He had to go like deep into Seattle and find this like video store that sold like, you know, rare DVDs and other media, and ended up getting a copy of Cannibal Holocaust. And like we all knew that it was this banned movie, and we was like, yeah, let's watch it. And so we like went over to his house one day after school and watched it, and it was just, you know, a bunch of like 16 and 17 year olds getting really bummed out because it was like the satire of it all like went over our heads, and there's a bunch of like real animals like being killed in the film that's like put on camera, and like um some pretty graphic like special effects of people getting killed and eaten that they and I think later had to like defend in like Italian courts to
That
prove
they
that
didn't
like what they
actually.
did was like actually they didn't. It's not like a snuff film that somehow found its way into theaters. Um, so I would not recommend that one. It's always going to get brought up whenever people talk about like cannibals
Renting it
and
on Amazon Prime right now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Please don't. But that was an inspiration for this movie. And Ravenous would be a better option. Um, uh, there's also Catherine Bigelow, who is a good director, directed like Point Break and Zero Dark 30 and The Hurt Locker. Her first movie was actually a like vampire uh kind of a vampire movie that kind of plays out like a Western called Near Dark. It's not one of her best films, but it is another kind of older, like Western feeling, like with horror elements kind of thing. And then if you're looking for, you know, more violent, kind of tense films like this, The Hateful Eight, which is brought up, I think, on like 3 or 4 straight episodes. um, you know, you also have Kurt Russell, who is also in The Thing, which we talked about earlier. You have like No Country for Old Men, like the modern day Western, which I would always recommend. It's a fantastic movie. Um, one that is also probably not as well seen, but I think is really good is Green Room. And that's another horror movie from 2015. This is one that I recommend to a lot of people that are into or, you know, trying to get into horror films. It is a movie about a punk band that's traveling through and playing at different small bars in Oregon. And this punk band ends up getting sort of mistakenly booked to play at like a neo-Nazi bar that's run by Patrick Stewart in like one of the craziest turn roles, like to watch like Captain Picard or Professor X play like a neo-Nazi. Um, and this punk band plays at this bar. They play like the Dead Kennedys, like Nazi punks F off song, and like upset a bunch of the patrons. And then when they go to leave, they end up witnessing a murder, and they become trapped in the titular green room. And from that point on, it is one of the most tense movies I've ever watched. And it also gets similarly very violent. And in terms of like horror movies, one of the things that I think people bump on against with horror movies, particularly slasher movies, is when characters willingly do dumb things and you're like yelling at the TV, like, why would you go back in the house? Like, you know, the monster's back in that house, you know, the killer's back in that house. Like, you know, this is so stupid. Like, what? No real person would do this or whatever. Green Room is a movie where characters make calculated decisions, and when they miscalculate, it like they get punished for it, and it feels like there's nothing in the movie where you're like, oh, like, like that's stupid because they shouldn't have done that. It's like every
I
like
wouldn't have done
move
that.
that they
Like,
make. Yeah, it's like, oh, like I can see like if you're in that situation, you would try to go out this, trying to escape out of the room and get to this egress window. But then when they go through the egress window, there's somebody literally waiting right outside that stabs them in the back multiple times. Like,
Mm,
it's
mm.
really, really
Spoiler.
good and gnarly. It also features like the late Anton Yelchin. It was one of his last movies,
mhm.
and he's fantastic in it. So I recommend Green Room. It's pretty
Hmm.
gnarly. It's not for the faint of heart, but um, I love punk music. I don't like Nazis. Like it's a fun it's a fun A24 horror movie. So yeah, so
Nice.
that's what I would recommend. Um, and that puts us
Nice.
right at an hour. This is perfectly
Well
done.
done.
Good
So
job, everybody.
Yeah.
yeah, all right. So after covering an old western and then a violent horror western, we're going to next go into the Christmas season, and we're going to watch a warm feeling Christmas movie. We're going to watch The Holdovers next. So that'll be next up on the docket here. So thanks,
Nice.
everybody.
See you
Thank
later,
you.
guys.
This is fun.
Bye.
Do 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 do